So I posed the question to Ryan, how do we end up with the title of this episode as Die Hard Sexcapades, and we've decided to just turn this into a Brooklyn Nine-Nine fan podcast.
Boom, boom, boom.
Well, that's weird, because Ryan started to unclothe.
We're always unclothed for these podcasts, Evan.
Oh, yeah.
As our Patreon patrons know.
That's a Patreon exclusive.
Yeah, it is a Patreon exclusive. Our chests. Just chests. We're not sickos.
No, we don't start nude. We start dressed up as Die Hard characters, and then end up in the Sexcapades.
There's a bet somewhere in there if we get the first overall pick.
There is. Yeah. Welcome to the Winged Wheel podcast. We got weird way earlier than we usually do. I'm Ryan Hanna.
I'm Brad Crisco.
I'm Evan.
And
Speaking of weird things, with the Patriots winning today, my Twitter had a lot of weird Tom Brady kissing his son pictures.
I got
that is the
too.
weirdest. I totally forgot that existed until today, and I remembered how cringy that made me feel.
what? Just like him giving his kid a kiss?
Have you not seen that video?
Oh
my
like
God,
a parent giving their kid a kiss is nothing weird, except when someone
When it
takes a
lasts
still screenshot of it and
when it
posts
lasts
it on
5 seconds and it's on the lips.
No.
Yeah.
It's really weird.
And then when you see a still image of it, it doesn't help.
I hate
Maybe don't watch it, because it changed me.
I hate involving the sport, especially sports players, but public figures, kids, in like any kind of like media attention, any media release. It's vastly uncomfortable.
Listen, I object to that because the most successful part of this podcast is Mika, if we're being honest.
Yeah, I know, and I'm jealous, which is why
So
I'm trying to keep her out of it. So far.
So far.
She hasn't made a daring escape down here in some time now. It's been like a month or so.
This is true. We're overdue.
Has she tried to like get into doors that she shouldn't since she's learned how to open them?
Yeah, she tried walking out the front door at my grandparents' house a couple weeks ago.
Well,
That bad, eh?
It was
Yeah.
snowing.
Oh, the in-laws.
That was instant regret. She turned around immediately.
Well, I joked today. I said, "What happens if I just pushed her outside and then locked the front door? Like, how long would it take her to start like a little army with the other neighborhood kids and the vagrant dogs and cats around here?"
The world would end quicker than it did in, I can't remember the name of the movie, but some zombie movie.
You need to tie up the reference, by the way.
Honestly, I don't remember the name of any of the characters in the movie. Dawn of the Dead. That's what I'm going for.
Okay.
Dawn of the Dead.
I'm a big Shaun of the Dead guy.
Yeah.
You know about those movies were in production at the same time, and supposedly there were like the title mix-up was a coincidence.
Really?
Yeah, like there wasn't like maybe it was Shaun of the Dead was in production at the same time, and they made the title as like a riff on Dawn of the Dead, but like the movie wasn't intended to be a riff on Dawn of the Dead. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Both good movies.
What are you bigger fan of, Hot Fuzz or Shaun of the Dead?
Shaun of the Dead.
I think I'm a Hot Fuzz guy. Yeah, Shaun of the Dead's a close second.
I think it's a recency bias because I actually rewatched Shaun of the Dead probably about 4 months ago and I haven't seen Hot Fuzz in close to a decade.
Oh man, Hot Fuzz holds up. It really
Yeah.
does.
So does Shaun of the Dead.
They both do.
But if we're really breaking it down, I'm a Zombieland guy through and through.
They're making a sequel.
Yes,
with the
all,
same characters.
With the same characters. They
So
tried
good.
making a show out of it, and the pilot with new characters was such a train wreck they just out and out scrapped it.
Yeah, of
So
course.
now that they're getting, it's funny because since the original Zombieland came out, the ads are going to be so much different for the next one because I think someone was saying all 4 of the main characters since the original Zombieland have either been nominated for or won an Academy Award.
the budget also just went up tenfold. I have a number riddle for you guys.
Oh.
I don't feel like thinking.
Tell
today.
me how these 3 numbers relate. 102, 85, and 76.
102, 85, and 76 are those sections of Jolos Arena I have threw up in.
No, but close.
Is it hockey related?
Yes.
It's hockey related.
The projected point totals for Toronto's top 3 centermen.
No, but you're getting warmer. Should I just tell you?
Yeah, this will take a while.
Those are the top 3 points for the Philadelphia Flyers players last year. Claude Giroux, Jakub Voracek, and Sean Couturier. And they are last in the league with 14 ROW.
Yeah, they have less RW than Detroit now.
Big.
I think our third and fourth lines
Yikes.
didn't even get 100 points combined.
Detroit's leading scorer was literally Dylan Larkin, and he had, what, 60...
60s, like 67.
60, no, I think it was like 63, 62.
He is on pace for like 82 this year.
No, he's on pace for like.
Sorry, 74.
High 70s.
Yeah.
Let me, 1 sec. I got it right here. 63, 56, and 48.
Oh my God.
And we're ahead of them.
For now.
To be fair, though, Detroit has 2 players right now on pace to break 30 goals, which they have not had. They have not had a single 30-goal score since 2009. So this is a historic season, Evan.
Yeah, Mantha last year had 24 goals, 24 assists.
Detroit right now is 4th last in the league. I know this. I'm going to say the exact same thing I've said a couple episodes ago. 4th last in the league. All 3 teams behind them have at least a game in hand. Philly has 2 games in hand. And all of them could catch up in points. And all of them would pass Detroit.
Because
the thing
RW,
is,
unless Philly won both games in a shootout.
I think the teams lower than Detroit should project higher. Like,
Ottawa.
just because they're bad now, I feel like they should win more games than they have at this current time of the year.
But Ottawa.
So here's the thing.
Ottawa also doesn't make sense.
Ottawa, before the season started, we all said they are going to be the worst team. And then they started off incredibly hot. We were all like, all right, maybe they'll just be mediocre, which is kind of bizarre because by all rights they should be bad. They are now as bad as we were projecting. Well, not just us, everyone was projecting them to be. So I think Ottawa's going to be in this dance with Detroit. LA.
You mean Colorado?
Yeah, Colorado.
That's depressing.
Yeah, it's very depressing.
Oh, what are their centers going to look? Who's their second line center right now?
Colorado?
Yeah.
Yes. You? Is it you?
Is
this a trivia question?
No. Do they have a second line center?
I legitimately, you could, if they don't, you could do it.
Who's Boston's second? Oh, it's David Krejci, isn't it?
Yeah.
Damn it.
Imagine having David Krejci or anyways. LA is a team where before the season no one thought they'd be this bad, but then you look at their lineup, you're like, oh yeah, I can understand.
I don't
why.
feel bad at all because I don't really like Ilya Kovalchuk.
No, but here's the thing with LA. As slow as they are, you still think when your goalie is Jonathan Quick, when your number 1 defenseman is Drew Doughty, and your number 1 center is Andrzej Kopitar, that alone should at least get you to like 20th.
I want Red Wings fans to consider what Brad just said, and then wonder if this team really is just 1 or 2 pieces away from competing.
Who? LA or Detroit?
Detroit.
Like if we're talking are we at Drew Doughty and then Andrzej Kopitar? Well, yeah. If you put those 2 players on Detroit right now, they're probably in the playoff spot.
If Cholowski was as good as Doughty and Larkin was as good as Kopitar, and one of our goalies was performing as well as Quick could in his prime, Detroit still wouldn't be that much better than they are now.
No, not that much better. But if you just took that forward and that defenseman and just inserted them into Detroit as they are now.
Oh yeah, that would change a lot.
Oh yeah. Because then Dylan Larkin's your number 2 center, and you actually have a number 1 defenseman. So
Philadelphia at last in the league really puzzles me though. That's a team of underperformers.
And it's funny too because as bad as their goaltending was, they've now tied the NHL record for most goalies used in a season, and it's January. Carter Hart's been fine since he's come up. So he's not been lighting the world on fire, but he's been giving them good enough goaltending where they should be winning some games.
I don't watch enough or see enough Philadelphia Flyer analysis to really know what's going on. Other than, start of the year, it's like, well, where the hell's their goaltending?
Sometimes.
And now it's like, what? Too much change in 1 year?
Sometimes it's as simple as saying a lot of players regress at the same time.
Yeah.
I have a buddy who's...
I can't imagine the spirit levels are too high when you watch a coach and a GM.
Oh, yeah.
And then, the revolving door of goalies. And you're just watching your team lose games every game. It would be hard to rally for sure.
As much as we, by and large, as a fan base, disapprove of Blashill and Holland, it probably does help the players to have this level of consistency over time in Detroit, where it's just you've had the same GM forever, and then you change coaches like once or twice a decade.
Yeah, which is why I kind of advocate to kind of have that red wedding that Philly has in Detroit right now. Send them plummeting into the basement, guarantee Jack Hughes.
Well, there's a lot of, it's not like we fire Blashill and there's no options available for coaching. There's lots of...
That's my argument for that.
A lot of, competent coaches. I mean, will we get Quenneville? Probably not. But I think there's a lot of other coaches, and one we've interviewed on this podcast, who would be an excellent fit as a coach. At least, give him a shot. What does it matter right now?
None at all. But again, it's weird because Blashill, it's weird to see a lame duck coach go into the offseason without a contract extension, but we've been down this path before, so who knows what's
Or you see
happen.
every other bottom 5 team just gutting their staff, except for us in Ottawa.
And not even just bottom 5 teams. There's been, 7 coaches fired this year? Approximately?
Is that how many?
It's been a lot. Well,
oh boy.
Philly, St.
See, that's
Louis.
why I don't want to get into coaching. Just too much volatility.
Yes, that's why. Yeah, God forbid I could never tolerate making $3 million for only 3 years.
That'd be terrible. I don't know how you'd sleep.
Oh, geez. That's why I work in the public sector right now, for the money.
Getting paid once a month.
Oh, man, is that something?
Yeah. Nice to look at the bottom line. You see how much of your money has gone to taxes.
I actually don't even look at my bank account up until payday at the end of every month. I just can't. Like, I know where I'm at. I just, like, being paid monthly is so garbage.
When I started at Sun Life, I had 3 paychecks all in as one because of just how it worked out. And the amount that I paid in taxes was, I never looked after that. I didn't
No,
look
yeah.
again.
There's no, don't do that. Yeah, don't do that to yourself. So Detroit right now is on pace for 75-ish points, I think it is.
That bad.
Yeah.
That even seems high.
That actually does seem high. But again, it's the age of parity, right? Where
So-
even the bad teams are tolerable.
Someone, I think I saw a couple of comments, because I think the last couple episodes we started mentioning for the first time, like, earnestly, like, when we talk about write-off years, we started to include next year, and I think this is, like, the 3rd consecutive year where we've predicted a year in advance it's going to be a write-off, and someone said, don't write off next year yet.
Until we get we draft someone who comes into the lineup and it inspires me to think that next year's not a write-off, I think I'm going to continue to say it.
I'm not going to write off next year until July 2nd. No matter
Yeah.
no matter what happens, because, again, everybody was down on Philip Zadina after the World Juniors, but in his first game back with Grand Rapids, he scored 2 goals and had an assist, and the assist and one of his goals were of the highlight.
I'd rather see him
variety.
scoring in a professional league than
Yeah.
at a World Junior event.
Exactly, and there's the possibility Detroit ends up with Jack Hughes, and even if Detroit lands, I know they said they're going to be aggressive and maybe go after multiple free agents this summer, but even if they land just one big name free agent, you're inserting Philip Zadina, Jack Hughes, and or Capo Caco, and maybe like a Matt Duchene or an Eric Carlson in the lineup next year. Yeah, no, that's a much, much better hockey team.
Yeah, if we land somebody in free agency, and you know what? Let's say we finish 4th in the draft. You know, we're still going to get someone who could depending on what we do with some of our aging talent.
These days, 4th overall picks usually step into the
Did you say
lineup.
aging talent?
Yeah. I'm
Aging-
trying to be less pessimistic.
Aging warm bodies.
Yeah.
I'm glad both of you have taken this approach of being more optimistic in 2019, so that way I don't have to kid myself this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I am. This episode's point of optimism is real easy. We're coming off a little 3-Z, Bert.
Oh God.
Piss off.
Oh God.
We had all the titles and all the easy puns lined up, and then he had to go and score that 3rd goal.
Is this episode title Lil 3-Z Bert or Bert3zzi?
I like the second one.
I like Bert3zzi. BERT, the number 3, ZZI.
Has more marketability.
It does.
Bert3zzi.
Yeah. It will not be
Is it
searchable at all.
Bert3zzi or Bert3zzi?
Oh, that's hard.
I don't know.
I think you have to put Bert in there, otherwise this isn't going to populate on anyone's searches anywhere. It's Bertuzzi had. So Detroit has played 2 games since the last time we were on here, and the first game was a game against Winnipeg, in which I think they didn't really play up into their potential and still looked way better than Detroit with a 4-2 win. It was actually it became a little bit closer, but they scored the empty netter.
Yeah, because Winnipeg was up 3-0 and Detroit came back. Really nice 2-0 goal between Luke Glendening and Philip Hronek.
As expected.
That sounds like something generated by like one of those machine learning things that like listens to our podcast and then spits out a script, like something that just makes no sense.
At the early stages before it starts refining its algorithm.
Anyways, but that's a real thing that happened. Detroit lost that game in regulation, which is really, it pushed them pretty aggressively far down in the standings. Like it kind of firmed up their spot there.
That and 2 wins in the last 11 games will also do that.
Yeah, and then Detroit followed up the second night with pretty convincing 5-2 win against Minnesota in regulation, obviously in regulation.
What I would consider is their only dominant game this year. The one game this year where we can say, yes, Detroit just absolutely ran a team's show.
Yeah.
Bruce Boudreau said that was the worst game Minnesota's played since he started coaching there.
I mean,
yeah, that was off. That was actually embarrassing for Minnesota.
The shots were, 38-19?
Yikes.
19 shots against the Red Wings defense.
Yikes.
Mind you, right now, the current iteration of Detroit's defense isn't that bad because this does employ Jensen, Green, Hronek, and Cholowski on the regular, so...
And
That's tolerable.
Kaiser and Erickson?
No, Erickson and Cronwall.
Oh, boy.
Although Cronwall led the team a nice time to figure that one out.
Hey, Cronwall's turned back the clock a little bit this year.
But I figured something out.
Still not turning it back quite enough.
I figured something out, though, here. Jeff Blashill fully embraces the youth movement. And he embraces it by playing Nicholas Cronwall the most of any defenseman. He's going to, whether or not Cronwall's planning it or not, he's going to drive him to retirement the same way he did Henrik Zetterberg, just by playing him in a holy amount of minutes in a bunch of games that don't matter.
Yep.
I love the whole, we don't want to expose these guys to those high-intensity situations that they might not be prepared for yet.
You mean the ones they've done their entire life against the best players at their level?
Was that Jeff Blashill, Mike Babcock, or Bob and Doug McKenzie?
Yes. And these, they got a lot of talent, but they're not quite equipped yet to handle the professional game to 25, 30 minutes a night, and so we want to protect them a little bit, protect their growth, so by the time they're 35, we might be able to play them in an overtime period, and then they'll retire, and the Red Wings will be bad for the next 25 years.
I wish I had a good memory and could go back like 15 years and see how our player deployment was back then.
Well,
between 2002
it's the same
and 2008,
it's the same players that are being played now. That's for sure.
I see who the young guys are, and did they play as few minutes, and did the old guys take most of the minutes? I truly don't remember.
It's always been the old guys since the 80s, honestly.
There's two things that have changed though. The Red Wings old guys, the Red Wings don't have like all the top talents in the league like at the age of 30, from the ages of like 28 to 35 like they used to, and also the game has changed where it skews a lot more heavily towards younger, faster players being more dominant. So it's harder for teams to have dominant players at the age of 33 to 35.
Honestly, though, when your older guys are Fedorov, Yzerman, Lidstrom,
it's different.
It's fun. Yeah, I'd be playing them a million minutes a night too. But yeah, like I think there was a game, one of the last two games, Cholowski only played 14 minutes. And again, I actually don't hate the argument of let's not overexpose the young guys and overplay them. But I'm also not a believer in let's only play them 14 minutes. Like,
what's the average ice time for defensemen in the NHL?
Usually somewhere around 16 to 19, I would guess.
I'm okay with, I guess, 14 minutes, so long as the next game's a little higher.
Honestly, on a team where Detroit, where they don't have a number one defenseman, and there's not that big a gap between like your number one and your number four guy, I just roll out the 3 minutes pretty equally, and then maybe the bottom pair gets like a minute or two less.
Oh, they're getting 20.
Here's my thing. Early on in the season, maybe for how they played Hronek and Shulak and whoever else at the beginning of the season when there's all those injuries, or Larkin with not wanting to give him the captaincy. I can understand protected minutes, protected situations then. But 47 games into a season when these guys know what the team is, the league has more or less calmed down in terms of the volatility of those early games. Just give them the ice. Like, it's not going to hurt them.
Are the Red Wings the old boys club? Are they one of those teams?
They have always been the poster
100%.
Well, Edmonton has been.
In the front office, not on the ice.
Edmonton had everybody from the 80s working for their team.
Yeah.
Detroit is a watered-down version of Edmonton's old boys club with slightly better talent evaluation, which is why they've been good. Yeah. And I'm talking from like 2010 to now, because before that, yeah, they were the old boys club, but again, they had all those players that we talked about. But just now, their talent evaluation is mildly better, and they have holdovers from the previous generation that keeps them afloat. Meanwhile, Edmonton's like the most radical old boys club there is.
Oh yeah.
They still employ Peter Shirley for reasons.
I can't possibly understand what it's going to take now to fire that man. He 100% has evidence of ownership being like, lizard people from space, and he'll threaten to expose them if there's no. Why?
Everything comes back to Peter Shirley. That's how it works in the NHL.
He's a puppet master, truly.
But getting back to the Red Wings defense, so there's been a bit of concerning news. So one of the things I mentioned a week or two ago about optimism is Dennis Cholowski was sitting third amongst rookie defensemen in points per game this year, trailing only Miro Heiskanen and Rasmus Dahlin. He has now been leapfrogged. He is sitting 4th.
Ah, terrible news, Brad.
Yes. Philip Hronek now sits number 3.
What a twist.
So, if we're... This is why I'm not too upset with what Detroit's doing with Hronek and Cholowski. There's some things I would tweak, but they're playing well. And if they're playing well, then whatever's going on, I'm okay with, because if playing them an extra 5 minutes a night results in more W's, then this is probably the right way to go about it.
Yeah.
They're playing well. Cholowski, most of his production is coming on the power play. Hronek, most of his is coming from even strength, which is the exact opposite of what I was expecting from those two. But again, these are the 3rd and 4th best rookie defensemen in the league by points per game metric, trailing only 1st overall pick Rasmus Dahlin and what, 3rd overall pick Miro Heiskanen.
Yeah, he's good. They're both really good.
I'm okay with how this is playing out right now.
It's really, really refreshing to see, because Hronek was the guy last year we were watching in Grand Rapids and saying he's dominating, he's got all those tools. If you can translate this into the NHL, you're looking at a very real chance of this guy being a solid second pairing guy. And that's a really good, like, I know that might come off as like, well, we're looking for first pairing, so that's not good. No, no, no. First pairing is rare. It's not what you have. There's no point of attaching that value to this guy. It'll just set your expectations too high. He could be a solid second pairing guy who could produce. You now have 2 defensemen who show that they can produce. That's 2 power play units where you can put a
You're 50% of the way there. You just need 2 more.
yeah, better, but yeah.
And it's worth noting Detroit is not using Hronek on the power play right now.
No.
Oh, why would we? We've got Eriksson's wrist shots, and we've got Cronwell just standing there.
Well, they've got Green on the first unit, so
Well, yeah, that's
I
obvious.
cannot argue that.
Is he healthy right now? I can't. It's hard to
Relatively speaking, yeah.
Like, fine, healthy.
Yeah.
And then on the second unit, they have Cronwell and Cholowski deployed. Now, there was the first or second power play in the game against Winnipeg. They didn't put Cholowski out there. I don't know if he had an equipment issue or it was an injury, but it went dramatically bad, and then I guess they pulled someone else off and put Cholowski on with Cronwell, which I have no idea why Cronwell's on the power play at this point anymore. But either way, Cholowski scored a power play goal in that game against Winnipeg, so it ended up working. And I mean, yeah, like I said, this whole season we've talked all year. It's about development. I don't care where any of these guys are playing, what they're doing, as long as we're doing what's best for their development. Zadina clearly needed a year in Grand Rapids. Great, I'm thrilled with that. Sariarvi's doing great in Grand Rapids. Scored again last night. I'm at the point, though, Hronek should never play another game in Grand Rapids.
No, he should not go down.
He is a full-time... He looks comfortable. He looks confident. That goal he scored against, what was it, Washington, where Larkin had that wicked one-timer pass. Hronek was at the hash marks, bombed up the ice. His reads up ice
That was
are...
a fantastic read of the rush.
His timing on jumping in is phenomenal. The goal where he set up Lukeland, it was a short-handed goal against Winnipeg where he was the one making the pass on a 2-on-0.
Stop yelling at me.
How does he even know to make that play? But he's just got that instinct that you can't teach.
Yeah.
His defensive game, much like Cholowski's, isn't awful, but it's definitely a work in progress. But he was a point per game player in Grand Rapids this year. He has nothing left down there.
I'm a big proponent of picking up guys who can either play 2 ways, or if you have a lot of offensively talented defensemen, make sure you can back them up with like the Vlasics of like San Jose, like guys who really know how to play defense. I think defense is so sorely undervalued because the world of advanced statistics, which is still new and fresh and needs a lot of refinement, has not figured out ideal ways to quantify and communicate defensive ability. But at the same time, the Detroit Red Wings right now have defensemen, most of their defensemen are bad at both ways. So at least right now, add the Hroneks, who can, and add the Cholowskis, and make those guys the focal point of the defense, who can at least play one way and be serviceable.
Imagine where our defense would be, excuse me, if Eriksson ever, didn't fall off a cliff and continued to develop like that 1 year that seems like forever years ago, where we thought this guy is the real deal. And imagine if De Kaiser turned into more than what he is now, where it was basically every team said, you can come to our team, we'll make a spot for you. We'd have 4 highly capable defensemen, but
I don't think Eriksson ever
If
fell off
answer
a
buts.
cliff. I think he'd fell off a cliff, and that cliff was the exact same size and shape as Nicholas Lidstrom as your defensive partner.
yes.
That was 09, right, where that started?
around then. It might not be exactly
Yeah.
then, but.
And but truly fallen off the cliff. DeKaiser is a great example. But regardless,
But to be fair,
he's had a decent season.
Yeah.
He looked competent while he was playing this year. He did not look like he did early in his career, but he looked a hell of a lot better than he did the last couple seasons.
Yeah, I don't think he'll ever. I think it's a bit late to expect him to progress how he was supposed to, but he's
He's a pretty competent bottom pairing defenseman.
Yeah, like if DeKaiser's your 4 or 5 guy, you're probably a pretty good hockey team now. The downside is you're paying your 4 or 5 guy $5 million, but honestly, when you're structuring this hockey team now, you can't worry about that. You just have to slot guys in where they need to be slotted.
Yep.
Although I really, really, really think that DeKaiser could have been sold to Edmonton.
Oh, it's still
really
good, I
do.
think.
Still can.
Yeah.
Do not lose faith, my friend. But DeKaiser does lead us into the transition, which is the next point, coupled with how well Hronek's playing is, what happens when DeKaiser and Daly come back? Because the defense, as they are structured now, like if you pull out Eriksson and put DeKaiser in there, that's almost based on the personnel they have, my ideal scenario. But that's not how Detroit's going to do it. When DeKaiser and Daly come back, they're both going in the lineup, and it is almost certainly not Eriksson coming out.
Witkowski where?
He's not even playing right now.
Well, they could send him down.
He would almost certainly have to go to Grand Rapids.
This is a great segue into what the next point is, which is trade talks, especially involving Nick Jensen. Nick Jensen has gone from someone over the past couple of years where we've said serviceable piece, guys or teams looking for depth for a run could pick him up for cheap and it would help Detroit's logjam and they can get an asset to now, as you mentioned before the show, Elliot Friedman is mentioning him. He's getting a lot of chatter. Could get a lot of value back. Like teams are high on him. He's no longer just you have to follow Detroit closely to know who this guy is. Like he's seen as an asset, a defensive asset, which aren't really.
I think he's getting a ton of minutes right now too.
Yeah. Now I don't want to go too extreme here because markets adjust over time and adapt. But from what Elliot was saying and other things I've been reading right now, there's probably more interest currently in Nick Jensen than there was in Brendan Smith when we traded him.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not sitting here and saying that we're getting a second and a third for Nick Jensen. That is almost certainly not going to happen because the market has adjusted. Teams have realized that you don't overpay for these mediocre rentals. That being said, if you told me 2 months ago a second round pick by itself was an option for Nick Jensen, I'd have said, you're dreaming. Maybe.
Jensen and or DeKaiser would instantly make the Oilers' defense better. Not by a lot, but I could see them overpaying.
God, I can't believe there's teams out there that pulling defensemen off Detroit would improve their team.
Yeah, that's a bad look. That's a bad look. Imagine.
You never know if an injury occurs for a team, a fringe playoff team, or a team that has a serious chance at contending.
Or you
Nick Jensen's a great complementary piece.
Imagine you're an Edmonton Oilers player and you wake up one day and you realize you're Brendan Manning, and that's terrible for you if you're a hockey player. That has terrible implications. So then Oilers will have to replace that. So.
No, but relating it back to the Red Wings right now, the ideal scenario, and I'm going to say ideal realistic scenario because as much as we would love to move Eriksson or DeKaiser's contract, it's not happening.
No, that won't.
It looks like it's almost a foregone conclusion that Nick Jensen will be traded. That would free up one spot, but if you want to keep Cholowski and Hronek in the lineup, you still have to free up another spot. And there has been chatter that Daly's been getting some attention because he's only got 1 year left after this. And as much as we dump on the guy, he does not have a big cap hit, so it's easily moved.
Why do people want him?
I don't
know.
He's having the worst season of his career.
Yeah, and it's been steadily downhill. But if I'm Ken Holland, that's my solution. I'm getting. If he wants to hold out to the last minute to get max value for Jensen, I'm totally okay
We
with
traded
it.
Kindle, we can trade Daly.
That's true.
So then you're left with your Green, DeKaiser, Hronek, Cholowski, Eriksson, Kronwall. And as much as I dislike putting him in the lineup, you're still not screwed depth-wise because if you do have another injury, Witkowski can plug in. So this... I know
he plugs, that's for sure.
And I know
yeah.
Ken Holland's a big proponent of you always want depth available for injuries, and I actually agree with that philosophy, but I think he takes it to the extreme.
You shouldn't be so concerned with that when your team is not in competition for anything.
Especially when you have Hicketts, you have Sulak, you have Brian Lashoff. He's got depth. It's at least 2 defensemen need to be traded by the deadline here because, again, if for no other reason than to just keep giving Cholowski and Hronek, if he doesn't trade Daly, but he scratches an Eriksson or scratches Daly or whoever to keep Hronek in the lineup, I'm fine with it. Because I understand that right now the likely return on a Trevor Daly is a 6th round pick, and I would take a guess. So Ken Holland values Daly, his veteran presence more than he values a 6th round pick.
Like, we just gave him a 1,000th game plaque.
He is on the grip per 60 chart too.
So realistically, as long as Hronek and Cholowski are getting the minutes and we get a half decent return on Jensen, like honestly, I'd be content with a 3rd.
It's a real shame that we can't move Mike Green either, because he's another guy teams want, but he's got a full no move
until next year's trade deadline. So.
Yeah, so we're screwed for now.
That was such an asinine contract. Sorry, that's an exaggeration because the guy is good, but like, why?
We're way better with him in the lineup. That's for sure.
Mike Green is so much. Like, yes, he could, like, he is. Like, Detroit is, like, I think way, like, 8 or 9 wins better with him in the lineup, but at the same time, why do they need that right now?
Okay,
give him to a team that needs to get over that hump.
Now, I'm gonna actually have a counter argument to this. I don't even know if I fully believe this myself, but
that's what this podcast is all about.
Yep, the Red Wings are a team that believe heavily in a veteran presence, and I always think it's bull crap because
that's why we have Vanek.
Justin Advocator, Thomas Vanek, and like Jonathan Eriksson are not teaching the young guys anything. Okay. I do think having Mike Green around is a positive influence on Cholowski and Hronek. That is a guy that you would want those two learning from. So if Hronek, for whatever reason, does not go down for the rest of the year, having the rest of this season with Mike Green and then a good chunk of next season to learn from him, I actually do see the value in that. So
that's fair.
I don't think Green's contract was so asinine because of that factor. I thought at the time Thomas Vanek's contract was more asinine because you signed a veteran to a 1-year deal with a no-move clause.
Agreed.
And then I watched Thomas Vanek this year and realized it doesn't matter. Nobody's taking him. So
I don't think anybody was taking him last year either.
No, they didn't. Vancouver literally did not even get a draft pick for him. They had to take back like a C-level prospect.
I've read a lot of things that Vanek is actually really good with the younger players, and he's always asking them questions like, "Oh, what do you think about this?" And he's like picking their brains to instill some knowledge in theirs, and I think that you know what? Who cares? At the end of the day, who cares?
Yeah.
And if it helps one young player just a little bit, it'll be worth it.
Yeah. There's one thing left, or sorry, not one thing left. There's now like kind of an established group of players that Detroit could trade. There's no high-end pieces that are going to garner, some mega deal, but Detroit hasn't had that in forever. You have Nyquist, you have Howard, you have Jensen, and then you have like a wild card that could be anyone of Daly or someone else might unexpectedly move. I think Detroit will end up moving 1 to 2 guys this trade deadline, but it is good because it makes for an exciting deadline for Detroit fans.
And you never know; some team could come out of nowhere and come in with a trade or what am I trying to say? Where are my words? Someone could be asking for someone and put something together that we never thought we were going to get.
100%.
And be like, oh, okay.
It's happened before. Look at what Detroit got for Brendan Smith and Thomas Tatar. Like those were those 2 players garnered a first 2 seconds and 2/3.
Yep.
That's nuts.
And that first turned into Joe Valeno, and one of those seconds so far has turned into Jonathan Bergman.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you never know. Peter Chiarelli could come out, wake up one day, have this crazy thought, and all of a sudden we're looking at another trade we didn't think was going to come.
One of the landing spots that makes an absolute ton of sense for Gustav Nyquist is Edmonton.
Yeah.
This is a team that is only 2 to 3 points out of the playoffs any given night right now in a Western Conference that is laughably bad. How is Minnesota holding down a playoff spot, by the way? Anyways.
Yeah, that Western Conference, Anaheim is still in a playoff spot. Are they?
They just dropped out, and Minnesota was the team that replaced them.
10 games. They had to have 10 straight losses to drop out of the
Edmonton's won 10-game stretch of 6-3-1 from comfortably holding a playoff spot. That bottom part of that conference is so bad right now. So a team like Edmonton, who they're not trying to tank, they're actively trying to move up. A Gustav Nyquist to put on a line with McDavid or to put on a line with Nugent Hopkins, it's ideal. It's perfect. Now
he becomes a 30-goal scorer minimum.
Yeah, and the question is Edmonton going to give up a premium to get a rental when they're not guaranteed a playoff spot? Probably not, which is the sticking point. So you look at a team like Nashville for Nyquist, who's like, okay, we are going to be one of the best teams in the league, so they will pay more. It's just, is he willing to waive? Because he does have the no move.
Nyquist is the player I feel, if if you're not gonna get a Wayne Simmons, for example, I feel like Nyquist complements a lot of teams' rosters really well. And if I was a team, I wouldn't be looking at the top of the board. I would be looking a little further down at a Nyquist.
But then you're going to pay Nyquist prices further down the board, which is like a second round pick, and that's about it.
If Edmonton wasn't spending to the cap right now, I think they had like 50 grand in cap space.
The thing that gets me irrationally excited right now, though, is the fact that Detroit has two things that Edmonton desperately needs. They have a fast puck-moving defenseman who shoots right, Nick Jensen, and they have a second-line scoring winger in Gustav Nyquist.
Gustav Nyquist would be, I think, a 70-point player on a line of Connor McDavid.
Yes.
And then the part that gets really irrational is that every rumor I'm hearing is that Jesse Puljujärvi's future in Edmonton is uncertain.
If they weren't spending to the cap, I would say
what's
like
Jensen's cap hit? It's like $1 million maybe.
Oh yeah, he's
lower. He's making less than $1 million. Combined, they're making about $5 million, but I'm sure the Oilers have one player in an expiring contract who they could just move to Detroit or two, just to free up the cap space.
Hey, we're getting a Brandon Manning.
The only player,
not necessarily him, but someone like that, sure.
Only player that's making more than $1 million whose contract expires after this year is Tobias Reeder for $2 million.
Cool, and Detroit retains half of Nyquist and Jensen to get Puljujärvi.
Well, there's also Alex Petrovic, and
that's a bad look if they trade Manning or Petrovic.
But Jensen's an upgrade.
So here's the thing: like, if they weren't spending to the cap, they could easily put together a package for Nyquist and one of like Jensen or like Dick Heiser, and
it's not happening, Ryan. Get off the
please.
We'll just entertain your thought.
They could put together a package for Nyquist and Jensen, which would be a huge get for any team, really.
That's one where even if we get a good return from Edmonton, I'd look at that from Edmonton's perspective and go, well done. This was useful.
They might win a round in the playoffs with that. That honestly might change the outlook of their season and put it at least in the green for the rest of the year.
Yeah, let's say they finish third in their division. Who's second right now? Oh God.
That division right now, it goes Calgary, San Jose, Vegas.
I don't like your odds against San Jose, but you win a round. It's probably worth it considering how bad this year is. Sounded in Edmonton.
Realistically, a wild card is only their option, and they're probably getting Winnipeg or Calgary. Which, by the way, I'm here for those all-Canadian playoff series that we don't see often enough anymore.
It's the ebbs and flows of how many Canadian teams are in the playoffs.
God, what I wouldn't give to see a Calgary.
One year there's like
series.
14 kids. Oh, I miss those. I miss them so much.
I would pay so much money to watch the Calgary-Edmonton playoff series right now.
Edmonton, like, honestly, if I'm Chiarelli and I'm looking for realistic moves that might make the season go better, Detroit is a gold mine. Detroit is a gold mine for any team that's looking to get that extra little edge in the playoffs. It doesn't make sense for Detroit to be for us to be talking about teams like Chicago who aren't going to give up their very high end first round picks. That's just not going to happen.
Oh my God, would Chiarelli give up his first round pick?
But this is a year where there's a lot of teams that are fringe teams in the West who could end up really low, but are still, for whatever reason, making a push. Detroit is the perfect target for them. They have assets that are attainable. These aren't like Erik Karlsson blue chip pieces where
you have to sell almost your entire farm to get.
They can be had for less than what Tatar was got for, or something in that range, and it could legitimately make a difference. We're not selling snake oil here. Even De Keyser, as much as I joke about that, I legitimately think playing the way he is would make Edmonton better right now.
Yes, but cap.
And they have 50 grand left, and they need about 100 times more than that.
Yeah.
2, I thought.
But yeah, so circling back to the point, realistically, I think there's 4 Red Wings who could be moved at the deadline. Howard, Jensen, Nyquist, Daly. If I had to put money on the table, I'm going to say 2 of them get moved, and Nyquist and Jensen are the most likely.
We were talking about deployment before, and I saw some stats tweeted out, I want to say by Prashant. It might have been someone else, by way of someone else. It was the Larkins line, Corsi 4, I believe, with and without Abdelkader. Without Abdelkader, it's like an 8 to 9% difference.
Oh my God.
That's not good.
Yeah.
And as far as Corsi goes, 9% is a massive difference.
It goes from like 51 or 52 to like 61 when Abdelkader's not there.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Wasn't Larkin among the league leaders in Corsi relative as well?
Yes.
Too?
You want to know a player that makes their Corsi 4 way better on that first line?
Nyquist, Bertuzzi.
Larkin, Bertuzzi, Nyquist. Bert3zzi makes that line way better. So it's
Well, they've actually been running Nyquist, Bertuzzi, Larkin the last couple games, haven't they?
yeah.
Yeah.
Mantha is also someone that makes that line significantly better, but as Prashant noted, he thinks the better move would be to give Mantha his own line because of the way he generates chances. He can essentially carry his own line the way that Larkin does, so it makes more sense to split him up and have two really serviceable and positive lines.
Yeah, they got Mantha with Nielsen and Vanek right now,
Something like that.
and Vanek started scoring lately, so that
I gotta
might
wonder
not
what
be
you did in a
coincidence.
previous life to garner you that. Cool.
Meanwhile, it's nice. Detroit is back. Like, they're a very streaky team, but Athanasiou is running hot streak right now, and Bertuzzi's running hot streak right now, and they're playing on different lines. And Vanek's running hot streak, who's also on a different line. This is nice. It's weird, but it's nice.
Detroit's good players playing well are essentially the composition of Detroit's like super teams from like 10 plus years ago, but from the second line down. There's not the first line like Datsuk, Yzerman, Federer. There's none of that. There's no Lidstrom, Rafalski, but everything below it, like you're getting those guys.
But since Mantha has come back and Helm's come back and they've actually had some proper structure in the lines, even though Detroit has not been winning a lot in the last 4 or 5 games, they've been competitive in those games. It's not like they're getting comically outshot like they were before. Like, they didn't get their show run by Washington or Winnipeg. They didn't look like the better team and they didn't win, but they looked like they at least belonged on the same ice, which was new. Because for most of the losing streak here, or the stretch of losing, whatever you want to call it, there were games where Detroit was getting outshot 38-14 at points in the game, and that's not happening now, which is nice. They're tolerable to watch again. It's not like, what was it, that Islanders game where there was a point in third period, the shots were 39-12?
Yeah, I think that's what it was.
So we're not seeing that anymore, which is nice.
The Red Wings, it's been the ideal hockey to watch for a losing team, which is that, like you said, young guys are producing, you're seeing development, you're seeing excitement, but the people who cheer for the tank can still be happy.
Exactly. The vets are so bad. They are literally dragging this team down.
Yeah.
Despite how well Larkin, Mantha, Nyquist, Athanasiou, Cholowski, and Hronek have been playing lately.
You can only do so much.
Yeah.
My biggest takeaway from the Jets game, those third jerseys are so stupid. I hate them so much.
You know what? It's not even that I hate those jerseys. Objectively, by themselves, in a vacuum, they're fine. I don't love them. I don't hate them. They're just all right. It's what they could be that pisses me off. Winnipeg, those outdoor jerseys Winnipeg used a year or two ago,
Yeah.
were beautiful. Those should be their full-time jerseys.
Those jerseys are literally sex embodied in a jersey.
And yet they can't use it. Because I understand that due to copyright, different franchise, they can't use the old Jets jerseys.
Oh,
Yada,
they
yada.
could use it. The NHL could make it happen.
Sure, but if they don't want to go down that legal fight, I get it. And they came up with the perfect alternative. They kind of, like, had the color
Doesn't the
scheme
NHL
below.
own all the stuff that belonged to Atlanta?
I have no idea.
The NHL could do it. True North wanted to sell
Well,
different...
no, this wouldn't be an Atlanta issue. This would be an Arizona
Sorry,
issue.
Arizona.
Yeah.
But the NHL would make it happen. I think it's truly just that the True North ownership group didn't want to sell jerseys that most of Winnipeg already owned.
Oh, if I was a Jets fan and you gave me the modernized version of the old jersey like they had, I'd buy 3.
They didn't even want to use the Jets name until there was nearly a riot, which would have been the first time in history that everyone in Winnipeg was outside the warmth of their homes at the same time.
Yeah.
I think a lot more of it has to do with jersey sales, and they want from the ownership group to move away from the old identity, which I can understand objectively written down on paper with no sentiment assigned, but knowing this is the Winnipeg Jets and this is the circumstance, just make the easy choice is so easy. The NHL's golden age of jerseys really is such an easy thing to go back to. They just hold up like an old classic movie that just stands the test of time.
Like, honestly, to really affect Detroit, if Detroit next year brought back an old jersey that a lot of Red Wings fans already own, the barber pole, which is my favorite, I'm still buying one. If Detroit came out with a red jersey with just the word Wings written across the chest in italics,
Murder me.
I'm not buying it.
Stab me through the heart and move the knife after. I have no interest in that.
That's what this comes down to. Is it aesthetically pleasing? That's all this should be about.
Does Detroit have a stadium series game coming up?
Probably not, and I hope not. I'm so sick of those things.
Is Colorado getting one soon? Because it could be Detroit versus Colorado again.
Dallas is getting one next year, and I think 2 Canadian teams, from what I remember.
One of my friends is a Toronto fan, Brian. He said to me yesterday, he thinks that this rumor about Detroit's third jersey might be just like an outdoor game.
No, they announced the outdoor games for next year. Detroit is, unless Detroit's the team playing Dallas, they're not going to be involved.
Detroit Dallas actually, I think it's a little bit far back.
Right now, apparently the team that's the front runner to be playing them is Vegas. So
I think I like that a lot. I don't think have Dallas and Vegas even developed a rivalry.
No, but it's Vegas with every new team. Throw Vegas in many of these kitschy things
stuff.
that you can. Yeah, 100%. Just like when Seattle comes in, Seattle should get an outdoor game first year against Vancouver. Honestly.
Oh, if that doesn't happen, this league literally doesn't know how to market anything at all.
Yeah, first or second year, throw Seattle into it. It's just like why I don't understand like. San Jose's got this All-Star game, great. No, Vegas should have had this All-Star game, and Seattle should have it in like 3 years. Like, give the new teams as much of these showcase games as you can.
Speaking of San Jose, Erik Karlsson is starting to play like one of the best defensemen in the league again.
It's amazing. It's almost like it takes time for a player to adapt to a new team and a new system.
And everyone is surprised.
He's got, 14 assists in his last 6 games or something like that?
He set a record, right, for most consecutive games to the point by... a Sharks defenseman?
By a Sharks
player, yeah.
Not defenseman, player.
Yeah.
Longest point streak.
The calls for his demise, or the calls... I can't remember how the quote goes, but the calls of his demise were greatly exaggerated.
Yeah.
He's...
no, the rumors of my death have been greatly exaggerated.
Right, yes, yeah. I don't... Anyone with half a brain, anyone, reputable or knowledgeable would have said, yeah, no, we're not going to write off Karlsson right now. But there was still like an alarming chorus of people who said, "Oh, Karlsson's a wash. His ankle ruined everything. San Jose overpaid." I'm like, no, man. They still have one of the best defensemen in the league. That's a scary group. That's a spoopy group.
There's different types of players where you can expect the decline to be rapid, not rapid, but like you can see it coming as their skill diminishes. Erik Karlsson's not one of those players because the biggest skill he possesses and the biggest tool he has is his brain. He thinks the game's so much better than everybody else, and that's never going to diminish.
No.
So as long as his body can somewhat keep up, he's going to be a useful, valuable NHL defenseman, and while he's still in his prime age where his body's functioning as it is, he's going to be one of the best, if not the best defenseman in the NHL. We're now saying, oh yeah, right, he's one of the best defensemen in the NHL. He's got 41 points in 44 games on the season now. And remember how slowly he started.
I wouldn't be surprised to see him over a 20 game.
No, and I'm not. He's gonna. And everybody's like, "Oh, there's no way he's gonna get 10 million in free agency now."
Yeah, he will.
Oh, he going.
Yeah,
he's getting set. If he goes outside San Jose, he's getting 7 years, 77 from someone. I hope it's Detroit, but I'm not putting money on that. But
I think now is. Oh yeah, if you're Ken Holland and or Steve Yzerman in the summer, you give him 7 by 11. Karlsson,
and you don't think twice.
Yeah, 100%. You gave Karlsson that money, you find a way to get Duchesne or Mark Stone. You draft a Capo Caco, Jack Hughes.
Here's why perspective matters sometimes when people laugh. Because I had a few people give me feedback when I said Duchesne was high on my list. They're like, man, Duchesne's not that good. He doesn't produce that much. Here's the part where I remind you that Duchesne and Mark Stone this season are scoring at a better pace than Dylan Larkin.
I've echoed this so many times. You could clip me making this exact same statement so many times. People need to stop being so narrow-sighted into a player's play or just a down year. There was a time where and this was when the podcast we had started this podcast. Victor Hedman was on the trading block, and teams didn't want to give up a first-round pick for him. And I was losing my mind. I was like, trade for this guy. Are you kidding me? He is a top, an elite level prospect who's just taking a year or two longer to develop. No one did it. Tampa hung on to him in the end because they didn't get the price that they wanted. And now look, they have a perennial Norris candidate. There are guys who can have a down year in a bad system, or just their development doesn't look like Sidney Crosby's or Alex Ovechkin's or whoever else. Attain those guys while they're cheap. Why do you want to get them while they're at their best? If you miss, that's fine. You still have probably still a great player, or you took your shot. If you don't get those guys, enjoy living in mediocrity, while you're hoping for first overall pick to come through the lottery. It just does not make sense. you can't expect to get a number one trade piece for very few assets going their way. It just does not happen. You can't expect to get to overpay and have it be worth your while either. You need to find that balance, and that's getting those guys while their value isn't at their highest, but anticipating how good they will be. If anyone says you're wrong for thinking Matt Duchene's high on your list, I just don't understand what hockey they've been watching.
And again, we get too focused on Detroit itself. Like, Larkin's having a phenomenal year, and we forget he's probably not one of the 20 top centermen in the NHL right now.
Yeah, everyone's guilty of
yeah.
looking through different lenses and with different blinders, but in general, you got to broaden your mind and stop living so like tangentially. I still would not ever write off Carey Price, you know? Like, and people, yes, it's been a couple seasons now, but he's not exactly had a ton of help on defense. His team is a patchwork team that is on the same path that, in my mind, Detroit has been on the past however many years. They've basically been scraped together with a lot of like welded on parts to stop the decline. Carey Price, yeah, could be playing better, but is still, in my mind, one of the best goaltenders in the world, talent-wise. And next year when he's posting like a .935 with a sub-2 goals against average, everyone's going to be saying, oh, who could have predicted this was going to come back?
He just shut out Colorado, and he's been riding a real heater the last 3 weeks, so he might be back already.
Nathan McKinnon, another one. Everyone was writing off Nathan McKinnon. He was a waste of a first overall pick. He's a bust prospect. He didn't turn into Crosby. Now look at him. It's not... People have got to stop being surprised by this stuff. And when you're a team...
It's a Pikachu meme.
It's the origins of the Pikachu meme, honestly. Anyways, that's my rant about something that probably most people agree with regardless. We have time for quick hits. Rick Nash is retiring. He unfortunately, because of concussion he suffered, was it in 2017? Not able to come back to hockey.
Was that confirmed that he was not medically cleared, or he just said, no, I'm not risking
I think he said for the betterment of his life after hockey because of post-concussion issues.
Yeah.
So he just
I remember this statement.
He just didn't want to risk making it worse.
Yeah.
Good idea. That is smart.
I'm glad to see a high-end hockey player finally say it and finally be the first guy to really, really take that step, where it looks like he can probably still play. He was getting contract offers this year from teams, multi-year contract offers from teams.
I'm sure he would have wanted to retire with Columbus too, if an offer was there.
He's dropping the puck for the Columbus-New York game, which is nice.
He'll always be a Blue Jacket. Screw you, Boston fans.
We have time to head over to... Oh, we have time. Of course we're going to head over to Patreon, where all of our patrons get their comments read out on air, guaranteed, as our way of saying thank you in this overtime segment. I'm going to pass this off to Evan or Brad, who's going to read out these questions, because I'm going to make a trip up to the little boys' room. I'll be back down.
I'm not reading shit.
Oh gosh. Okay, Antonio says, hey guys, looking forward to listening to this episode while I drive from Chicago to Grand Rapids. I was wondering if you have any road trip traditions. For example, growing up, my mom always played Bob Seger in the car and we would sing along. So...
Bob Seger.
Any road trip traditions?
Yeah, eat god-awful food, and I don't know. I don't really have any traditions. I do have a funny road trip story, though, so I'll ask that. I'll talk about that. So we were coming back from Haliburton, Ontario, driving down the 401 past Toronto. There were 3 cars of me and my friends. A tractor trailer had jackknifed in Milton and stopped us dead. Traffic didn't move for we literally did not move for 2 hours. I had a sunroof in my car and it was open because it was a hot day and I was young and could not afford a car with air conditioning. Next thing I know, I felt like pennies and pieces of garbage falling in my lap, and I realized that my friends behind me were using my sunroof as a basketball net. One thing led to another, and we got out of the cars. We had busted out some of the toys brought camping, including a football. And on the side of the 401, just outside of Milton, we had a quasi 5-on-5 football game going on while waiting for traffic to clear up.
I don't really have any road trip traditions. We just drink coffee and get the hell to where we need to go. Philip Gastineau says, first and foremost, if you didn't watch Snoop Dogg doing the play-by-play for LA last night, you have to watch it. It's literally gold. Well, I was playing that before we started. We were going to open with that, but we didn't. because we suck.
We didn't. I'm back.
There was an article by The Athletic that talked about new tracking technology, and they're testing out for gambling stats, broadcasting, and even VR. It was really interesting. The point that stuck out to me the most was how they think this will help appeal to the younger audience. I think this will definitely help appeal to the younger generations to get more involved. I'm 23, work in IT and game. Is this me from the past? I literally met my fiance on WoW. Nope, never mind. We've lived together for 2 years. Hockey is the only sport I can watch religiously because every other sports is so slow. You know what the NFL could use? More commercials.
I think more commercials. Double
Put the
commercials.
play clock to a minute and a half, please.
But that's when you drink.
Picture-in-picture commercials, but make the commercials the bigger picture and the game the small
Do
picture.
you know what the NFL could also change? Less New England Patriots.
Yeah, well, Tom Brady's making that hard.
Less quarterbacks kissing their kids for 5 seconds on the lips.
Ah.
Anyway, I find myself going on the computer instead. What are your guys' thoughts on this new technology, how it'll impact the game and grow it? Also, what are your guys' thoughts on esports and the fact that it will probably be in the next Winter Olympics?
What's no? If esports ever end up in the Winter Olympics, I'm gonna shit my pants.
Why is it in the Winter Olympics?
Here's the thing, kid.
Why winter specifically?
I have no problem with esports at all. I actually love what major companies are doing and investing into it, and I love the fact that professional sports teams are meeting into it. But that's not an athletic endeavor, so it should not be in an athletic event.
I
like the
consider it
Olympics.
mental athleticism.
Yeah,
It's like a chess or ice dancing.
yeah, so I'm all for it. I love it. I love teams integrating with it. I just please don't call it an actual sport.
I just don't. I love esports, and I've played a ton of Counter-Strike and been involved in that scene. I just don't know how it translates to the general population that well. Like, me explaining what Counter-Strike and Dota are to people who don't do that, I think I'm an idiot and don't understand it at all. And I show it to them, they don't care.
But that's okay, because like there's certain Olympic events that I don't understand at all. I have no idea how the scoring, how the functioning works, so I just let those
figure
people do
skating.
I only play high-end esports like Fortnite and Roblox.
Oh man.
Your thoughts on all this advanced tech, tracking, advanced stats coming from the sport itself? Though it's going to be clunky at first and not nearly to the level that we want, it's a great foundation, and it is exactly, if you want to know the next big things in professional hockey from a business perspective, that and betting, and both of them are coming, and that's what's going to help this game explode and grow. Just pray that doesn't mean that the NHL expands beyond 32 teams. But yeah, I 100% am in favor of that. As for esports, I love video games. I love them getting a bigger audience. I love what big video game personalities have done to make themselves more acceptable to the mainstream, so they can get more exposure. Putting them in the Olympics, I'm not a fan, but the Olympics are also, a joke in terms of how things are determined and where they go. So I'm not going to, set anything on fire if video games are available. I don't watch most Olympic sports anyways, so. Although, if it would be kind of a gut punch if someone could play NHL 19 in the Olympics for a medal, but NHL players couldn't go actually play for a medal. So that's my take on that. We are going. Evan, thank you for taking over while I was gone. I'm going to move over to Clayton Van Dyken. He says, "Hey guys, it's been a while since I posted. Just want to say I'm still watching Wings games and I'm always listening to the podcast. Thank you for your support, Clay. Don't really have any hockey questions today though. Instead, have any of you seen Spider-Verse? I honestly can't recommend it enough. Maybe the most enjoyable movie all the way through I've seen in years. Anywho, have a good one." I have not seen it yet. I really, really, really do want to.
Neither have I. I have a child. I don't watch many movies.
Yeah, I haven't watched it. I'm not a theater guy as much as I used to be.
I love going to the movies, but again, that requires babysitters that are not always available. Although I did finally catch up on Bird Box. So.
Oh, how'd you like it?
I enjoyed it. The hype was a bit much. It didn't quite live up to the hype for me, but I enjoyed it.
I thought it was decent, yeah.
It was good.
You guys watch Bandersnatch?
Yeah. I got a lot of the end.
I feel like people are really low on that and they just don't get it. It's like M. Night Shyamalan movies. People always trash his movies, but I always find them wildly thought-provoking, and I thought Bandersnatch was definitely one of those.
Yeah, I think they did a great job making it thought-provoking. As long as you go in not expecting a classic Black Mirror episode, but more of it just a new, innovative experience, I thought it was great.
Yeah.
Although I should say about M. Night Shyamalan, I think the guy has a lot of talent, but he should forever apologize to humanity for putting out The Happening. that is easily the worst movie I've seen.
Okay,
haven't seen that.
I'm gonna make an argument here. I think if you put anybody but Mark Wahlberg in there, it's not a good movie, but it's at least tolerable at that point. That was the single worst acting performance I've ever seen in my life, and I have seen The Room.
I'm trying to remember the line that when Mark Wahlberg was arguing with the train ticket agent. I can't remember what it was. Anyways, I
My favorite one was he was talking to the plastic plant.
Yep, of course.
Yeah, no.
Garrett TV says, I want to comment regarding a criticism posted last week towards your guys' alleged wavering opinions on various topics over the years. Firstly, I applaud you for reading it on the air. That said, for a group of fans / non-insiders, I think you guys do a pretty good job of remaining on topic and reasonable in your opinions. To criticize you for changing your opinions based on the direction the wind is blowing and you're totally behind it, in quotations, is a pretty tough line. I think there's been some change over the years, sure, but as you pointed out in your response to this criticism, you're not afraid to evolve. My God, how we need more of that mentality in the world, so thank you. But even still, calling you out for the Mrazek thing was tough. Not only was that by far the prevailing opinion of the Detroit sports world at the time, but the criticism of you via saying that leaving Mrazek exposed more or less turned out to be the right decision takes entirely away from the fact that we have no clue how that decision impacted his psyche. Perhaps protecting him would have changed his play and confidence. We can never know, but we do know hindsight is always 20/20, and it's tough to be much ahead of the direction of the wind is blowing when you're not someone like the Bob father and not really able to gain deep insights until things have happened. You're also consistently open to admitting being wrong and generally not nearly as knee-jerk as reactionary as was suggested. I've listened to fan podcasts from many teams in several sports, and this place is by far the most reasonable and informative I've ever come across. Sincerely. Maybe it's just because I've lived in Chicago for 12 years and I've been subjected to the laughable irrationality of their fan bases, but thanks for doing what you do. As you can tell by the rambling nature of my comments, if I had to be talking in front of a mic for 3+ hours a week, things would get pretty dicey. So keep it up and let's go Red Wings.
Is there a question in there? I can't remember.
No, but that was very heartfelt and sincere and incredibly kind, and that means the world to us, so thank you.
Put it as a review on iTunes.
Just copy and paste.
We really appreciate that, Garrett. Of course, we're always we beg you guys for any constructive criticism, accolades, or positive, negative, or neutral that you have. Always happy to adapt. We're happy that you kind of agreed and saw our side of things, and not that we took that the comment from last week, in a negative way. I thought it was constructive, and it's always good to even talk this out on air. We are always our main goal is to make this the best show we possibly can for you guys with all the resources we can have and a little bit more.
It's not fun if we all agreed.
No. So yeah, thank you, Garrett. Kaylin Wood says, 2Z scores 3Zs. That was a fun game and I hope it helps the boys' confidence. I have to fly back to Nebraska this week, so you guys are saving my sanity with this pod. Well, you guys and beer. Lots and lots of beer. That's funny. Beer saves our sanity. So beer truly is what brought you this podcast.
Yes.
The Wing Wheel Podcast, sponsored by beer. Use promo code BEER for beer. Joe Caboose119Z Falzone says, who's the prospect playing well that nobody's talking about? I love Lindstrom, but I feel like he's finally getting noticed. So is it Gallant, Kevin Mackey, Adams, Bertuzzi, Eliasson? Kevin Mackey had a stint in at the highest level in Finnish hockey and didn't overly impress, but at the same time he still weighs like no pounds.
Yeah, he makes me look like a giant. Yeah, he's probably that. I still don't think Philip Larsson's getting the amount of talk that he deserves because he is playing very well for the University of Denver right now, despite missing the first couple months of the season with injury. He is looking like our best bet to be the #1 goalie overall. But my vote for the prospect who's not getting enough attention is probably going to be Jesper Eliasson, the goalie we took in the 3rd round out of Sweden last year, who is having a very fine season in Sweden right now.
Angelo says, hey guys, just recently became a patron and love the show. Welcome to the family, Angelo. Thank you so much for your support. He says, how's our goalie prospects looking? If Howard is traded, which I doubt at this point, would we have anyone to bring up that's ready? Not too sure about Bernie as a full-time starter. Have a great week, guys, and thanks for all the content.
Short answer, no. No, yeah. There's nobody there. Hari Satri and Patrick Rebar in Grand Rapids look like they'd be capable NHL backups, not good or great. Philip Larsson, Jesper Eliasson, and Keith Bertuzzi all look like they have potential, but the best of them is probably at least 3 years away. Mm-hmm. So Detroit is... this is why I don't think Howard gets traded, is because I think we're going to need Jimmy for at least 3 more years as a stopgap. So Yeah, that's kind of where it lies right now. Lots of potential, but nothing imminent.
Rowan says, does this year's deadline feel like there's more talent available than previous years, or is it just because we have a few more assets and we can trade that the depth stands out?
No.
A little bit of both, I think.
No, it's definitely because the talent's there. Like, you've got... When was the last time that one team had two players like Matt Duchene and Mark Stone who could be...
Oh, you're talking league-wide.
Yeah, and then you look at Panarin and Bobrovsky, who might be available, Wayne Simmons. There's just... There's been lots of trade deadlines with lots of talent. It's just, I've never seen a trade deadline with this much top-line talent.
Nyquist probably isn't a lot of teams' first and probably even second choice for a winger, for example. The Howard thing is fascinating, and as mentioned previously, whatever happens with Bobrovsky may prove to be telling. Definitely sucks that the Sens will be likely sellers, as we need them to be good, so the evil, no-good, horrible Avs don't get a nice lottery pick. Go Sens. Jersey time. Ryan, you mentioned the Centennial jersey last episode and how it's grown on you. They're even nicer once you get one in your hands. I recommend obtaining one. What has been the best non-Wings Red Wings outdoor game jersey? I'll save you time on the worst. It's the Ducks Stadium Series and the Wings Stadium Series.
So Ducks Stadium Series is good. San Jose's two-colored abomination.
I don't mind though. I thought they were clever.
Best. Here's the problem. There's been so many outdoor game jerseys. I can't actually remember half of them.
Toronto's jerseys for the Big House game were pretty nice.
They were alright. Didn't hate them, didn't love them. I'm literally struggling to remember most of these jerseys.
I was gonna say anyone in Chicago is just by volume alone.
I like Pittsburgh's baby blues. Before every team decided to do a baby blue.
Really?
Yeah, that Pittsburgh-Buffalo game was aesthetically pleasing from both ends. Buffalo went to their proper jerseys. Pittsburgh's baby blues looked nice, again, before every team decided to go with the same frickin' theme. Yeah, I'm just going to go with that game as my answer.
Alright, and we said we're going to have hashtag AskWWP, and we're going to take a few of those questions every episode. So if you tweet with the hashtag AskWWP, you might make it into overtime. So Woodson, number 2, says, if the Wings end up taking pick 4 or 5, will they take a center or take a D-man?
Based on the strength of this draft, it'll almost certainly be a forward. I'm not even going to say center because I don't know that there's a defenseman who slips into the top 5 right now. Ideals, right now the 3, 4, 5 guys look like Podkolzin, Cousins, and Doc, who are all centermen, which is good, I believe, but they're all forwards. Byram would be right on the cusp of going somewhere between 6 and 9, so yeah, they probably go forward. And again, I think Detroit needs to draft a high-end forward before they draft a high-end defenseman, just because they don't have a mega high-end centerman or #1 defenseman prospect right now, and they have more defensive prospects, so at least they have depth there. They need forwards.
Ryan Lee says, not really Wings related, but could you see a scenario where McDavid gets so fed up with the Oilers organization that he requests/demands a trade out?
Yeah.
It's very unlikely, and I want to qualify before anyone clips this and throws it on Reddit and calls me a dumbass. I'm going to qualify this by saying it's so unlikely, it's almost not even worth talking about. But if you had to say whether it's more likely last year or this year, it's definitely getting more likely now with this whole Chiarelli mess.
I don't think it'll happen soon, but if Edmonton does not improve in the next 4 years, yeah, absolutely.
The guy's going to compare himself to Sidney Crosby, and Sidney Crosby had to work on some things before winning a cup. But, McDavid's consistently the best player. Obviously, he's the best player in the world. There's nothing he can do. There's nothing he can do with a team that's bad to win a cup. It's just not possible. And he needs better help. Is LeBron James in his first stint with Cleveland? And
he can't help but look around when Crosby, Ovechkin, Patrick Kane, and Jonathan Toews, when a lot of these stars came into the league, their teams were awful. Like the worst of the worst in the NHL. And then they got good pretty fast because they built around the stars. Obviously themselves certainly helped the case, but their GMs built around them. It was Pittsburgh missed the playoffs in 2006 by infinity points and then made the Cup Finals in 2008. Chicago missed the playoffs in 2008 by a lot and then won the Cup in 2010. When you have superstars, it's not that hard to build around them, and Edmonton's just going backwards somehow.
Iserbaz says, given the potential cap space cap space free at the end of the season, should Detroit avoid signing any free agents unless a bona fide superstar wants to come and save that space to be weaponized and taking bad contracts from contenders with picks or prospects?
Oh no, if you sign a superstar, you sign a superstar.
No, he means like superstars not included.
It depends. Like again, if it's like a secondary defenseman who's still valuable, like Tyler Myers or Alex Edler, if you can get them on a reasonable contract, you do it. Although from the sounds of it, Edler's not leaving Vancouver. Again, reasonable contract. But no, yeah, you shouldn't limit yourself. You see what's out there and you act accordingly. But yeah, I'm pretty much superstar or bust in my mind at this point.
In general, the same way.
Yeah.
Ryan Porter asked, would it make sense for Detroit to can Blash Hill soon and give Bilesma half a season trial to work with? What are your thoughts? Just don't want Detroit to lose Bilesma to another team looking for a head coach.
There are no shortage of coaching options. I really don't care what they do for the rest of the season, honestly.
All right, we're going to head over to the Reddit thread where we have time for a few questions.
Evan's got to go.
Evan's got to go.
Hockey.
See you later.
Somebody has to beat the second worst place team in the league now. And it's not us for once.
Graffinino says, my boys and I recently attended our first ever NHL game, Wings vs. Flames. The Wings lost, but our homemade helmets, I remember those, were a huge hit. Lots of people said we should sell them online, and gift shop employees said fans were asking about them in the store. I initially thought of these as a fun thing for our group going to the game, but with the incredible feedback of the game, and decided to open an Etsy store, make them available to other Wings fans. Best part is all proceeds from the helmets will go directly into our upcoming adoption, adding another little one to the Red Wings fan base. That's nice.
Buy the helmets, you monsters.
Yeah, if you want to check it out, it's the link is on our Reddit thread. It's the Graffinino post. They are very cool, and he even posted his adoption story. Would love nothing more than see a bunch of these helmets at a Wings game in the future. May just have to send a freebie along to the Wing Wheel podcast for that background collection you're all working on. Yeah, we support. Oh, some other people wanted to send us stuff.
I'm a fan of free things.
Yeah, I forgot. If you were a person who asked for an address and I just didn't answer you, please hit me in the head and just ask again. Yeah, go check those out. They're actually they're so cool. I remember when he tweeted at us, I showed everyone the helmets. They're very, very cool.
If you send us one, make Evan wear it for the entire episode.
Look at these. Have you seen them? Yeah, they're very, very cool.
Oh, the Thor helmets. Yeah, I remember seeing those.
Kimosabe R22 says, I've heard a lot about the names Hughes, Kako, Cousins, Doc, Podkolzin, and Byram. If we end up choosing outside of the top 5, are there any prospects besides them that you guys are high on? Buffalo Soldier 11 replied with all caps, Broberg.
I like Broberg. One name that that intrigues me is Cole Caulfield. Really, really small forward for the U.S. National Development Program, but he just scores a ton of goals. And again, he's not the fastest player, he's not the flashiest player, but he just scores a ton of goals. And the player that comes to mind when I see that is Alex DeBrincat, who somehow slipped to the second round. Caulfield won't go anywhere near that far down. But again, it's if you score goals, you score goals, and that's your thing.
Another guy that Jay Letty brought up was Arthur Kaliev.
Kaliev, yep, same thing. He's a much different player than Caulfield because Kaliev, in terms of height, is a monster, but just scores goals. I don't like Kaliev as much as I like Caulfield. I feel Kaliev's a very similar player to Mantha. Not that that's a bad thing. There is a lot of potential outside of the top 5, definitely. What's his name? Cam York, the defenseman from the U.S. National Development Program, is intriguing. A lot of people have been talking high on Matthew Boldy. I'm not huge on him, but worth keeping an eye on. It's going to be a big year for the National Development Program in the top end of the draft. So they're a team definitely worth watching a few guys on.
Is there a number in the draft that you think if Detroit slips below them, they'll have lost out on the potential at a high-impact guy that would have made a difference right then? Does that make sense? 6. So as long as they end up 6. So pretty much the same deal as they were last year.
Basically the same deal as last year. You've got Hughes, Kako, Podkolzin, Doc, Cousins, and I will throw Byram in there just because you should have at least one defenseman in there. So if Detroit misses the top 5 forwards, but they still get the best defenseman in the draft, I'm happy.
Yeah.
Anything past that, we'd have to hope for another Barrett Hayton situation.
Okay. So then, in that case, there's not really... Detroit's essentially in the exact same position because in terms of the talent available, in terms of how much we hyped up Deline and what he would do for Detroit and what Jack Hughes could do for Detroit, a centerman and defenseman, both like superstar potential, are the biggest needs. Mm-hmm. And so I'm truthfully just stalling a little bit because I'm trying to get to our list of patrons so I can do our readout on for our thank yous because we're at the end of the episode now. We would like to thank everyone for listening, all of our Patreon patrons, all of our listeners, all of our supporters. If you can't support on Patreon, other ways to support us, follow however you get your podcast, subscribe, hit that like button, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter at Winged Wheel Pod, and then go to our bio, follow our individual accounts. We're all very active. We love to engage with you guys on Twitter. Leave us a rating wherever you can leave us a rating, iTunes, what have you. Anything that you want to do to support the show. Thank you guys just so much for listening. I'm trying to get to thanking all of our top level sponsors, but I'm on my phone here because my laptop was on the fritz today, and it's not loading. And so for all of our name level sponsors, I'll make it up to you at the beginning of the next episode.
We could just guess.
Brock. Oh no, I think this is the wrong list. So thank you all so much again. We are going to be back with you later this week, Wednesday or Thursday, to be determined. Hey, good way to keep up with that. Follow us on Twitter. Have I said follow us on Twitter? Follow us on Twitter.